I was working a late night and I had had a lot of caffeine that day and probably like 1,000, maybe 1,200 milligrams of caffeine, and my body could not handle it.
How are you not raving?
Have you ever had one of those stressful afternoons in the office? The ones that are filled with endless meetings, deadlines, and to-dos?
Well, that used to be the case until this moment.
Aisha Chottani is the founder of Moment, a flavored water that incorporates elements of the mindfulness lifestyle into the beverage business.
I started feeling the burnout, and that's where my low moment came. Even though the work has stayed the same, I stopped feeling as connected with it because I felt that what I was doing wasn't having such a huge impact, and I started questioning what is the bigger purpose. My dad passed away. He had a small business. He had lived a very intentional life. I just decided that that was the time when I was going to do my own thing, and this was it.
What do you think the girl growing up in Pakistan, if she was sitting here right now seeing what you've created, how do you think she would be feeling right now? Aisha, welcome to the Ginni Show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I absolutely love your energy and positivity, and I can't wait to have this conversation.
I just had a moment. That's why my energy is like buzzing here. So I'm going to start with the obvious question. You're South Asian. I'm South Asian. As South Asian women, we're raised to constantly achieve, exceed, and I guess shine above all expectations. There's a lot of pressure, especially for our parents' generation, even some of our generation as well. Stress, burnout, and therapy, they're things that naturally South Asian women are like, I just endure this every day. What are you talking about? Stop complaining. It's often unspoken about. So how did you give yourself permission to prioritize your mental health?
I have a slightly different perspective on it. I do think as South Asians, you're raised with some of these elements. And me personally, my mom, she's very much a hustler. She can make anything happen, literally, like give her any project and she'll make it happen. She's very resourceful and creative. And my dad was so hardworking and disciplined. And so for me, especially, I learned those traits from them, and they did run very, very deep within me. But what I've learned is that, there is a way to leverage it without that burnout that you talk about. I feel burnout doesn't always come from hustle or from hard work. Burnout comes when you don't know how to manage your stress and you're not doing things that are meaningful or purposeful for you, that feels forced upon you. That's where I feel you start treading towards burnout. And that's been my journey with it. So I personally have a lot of rituals and support system that I've built over time to ensure that I can manage, because the reality is that, sure, as South Asians, we have some of these traits, or we're raised to be this way, which I think is great. I take it to my advantage because I see other people, and I see sometimes people from other parts of the world, and it's not natural for them to be hustling. And I'm like, this is great that I can do it.
I'm going to work.
Yeah, exactly.
I totally hear you on that, because there is a stat that says 60% of people equate being busy with being successful. Yeah. I think that sometimes that hustle culture can bleed into that a little bit. Why do you think we've glamorized burnout, though? Because it's almost like we're not doing enough unless we're feeling the stress, the pinch, and the exhaustion. Why do you think it's glamorized so much?
I feel what we have glamorized is busyness, is always on. It's so cool to be working long hours, especially in New York. I've been living here for the last 10 years. I used to be a consultant. And in my consulting days, sitting on with all your consultant friends on Friday and talking about how many hours or all-nighters you pulled was cool. I pulled an all-nighter on Tuesday because I was working on this client model, and people were like, wow, she's so intense, she's so cool. It was glamorous.
So it's kind of, you're rewarded for exhaustion.
It's almost like, hey, you're putting in that extra effort, and you're intense and you can do it. But I don't think what's glamorized is burnout. And I think the narrative is changing pretty quickly now. Even in the circles that I was talking about, where 5 years back, it was great to be throwing these. Now it's not. No, it's not. And I think the reality is that it's not always long hours that result in burnout. It is this lack of connection or like inability to balance yourself, your mind, your body, keep all of you in sync that results in burnout. It's when your mind is not feeling it or your soul is not feeling it and your body is still like spending these like long hours doing something that results in burnout. So I think now society is starting to understand that hard work is not always great work or like smart work, or it's not always gonna bring you that connection.
I would have to agree with what you just said there, because since I've been running my business, I think I've worked the most hours, but I don't feel the level of, yes, there are days I'm tired. Yes, there are days I'm stressed. But that level of burnout where I'm constantly in bed all day and I just want to watch movies on the weekend, I don't have those days, which I did every weekend when I was at a job that I was burnt out. So I do think there is this shift I hope there is a continual shift in business or in human resource culture or work culture, that we should focus on team members' sense of purpose, sense of connection, autonomy, how they feel this is progressing their life. And that's a good conversation to be a part of.
100%. And one of the things that I do as I'm hiring and as we are growing, I make sure that whoever is joining, it's not just like us interviewing them. I literally say this and I'm like, you should also interview us and make sure that this is something that's going to be your dream job, something you're going to be excited about. I don't care if you're like super capable, but if this is not something that really drives your passion, don't do it. That's just me as a person. I don't want you to do it if it's not going to be the most exciting thing for you.
That intentionality is super important, and you can't hire, teach, or create that, it's got to be in you.
It's got to be in you, yeah. So that's actually my big filter for it. And to your point, I running my own business, I work longer hours than I ever did. And consulting is supposed to be super intense here in New York. I work long hours, but I work longer hours. There's not a single day that I don't open my computer to answer some emails, but I'm totally okay doing that. I don't feel, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And I'm burnt out. I love it. I get up in the morning. I'm excited to get going.
You mentioned your past life in consulting, the strategy, suits, PowerPoint presentations, I'm sure. What was your most unwell moment before founding Moment, really?
So it's interesting because when I started my consulting journey, that's when I started sort of my professional working journey here. And I did enjoy the intensity. I enjoyed the pace. It was very fast paced, nonstop. My week would start at 3 a.m. Monday morning, and it was Monday to Friday. It was on 24 hours almost. And I thrived on it. So it was great until came a point where it wasn't. The first few years were exciting because I was learning new things. I was learning the taste of how to operate, how to to your point, build PowerPoint decks. And that learning carried me through. And then came a point where, after a while you learn most of the key tools, and then it's all about what are you doing? And that's where I started feeling the burnout. And that's where my low moment came. That's how my journey started shifting towards what I'm doing now. Even though the work has stayed the same, I stopped feeling as connected with it. And the reason I stopped feeling as connected with it is because I felt that what I was doing wasn't having such a huge impact. I think a part of it was sort of the types of projects and clients I was working with and how they were impacting society or the world. And I started questioning, but what is the bigger purpose? And that's how I started feeling so disconnected. And then I started noticing the burnout. Then it was just me putting in hours.
Wow.
Yeah, that's when you're oh, wow, you feel every hour that you're putting in. And then literally that shift happened so quickly. I would get up on weekends and I wouldn't feel like doing anything. I would get up on Mondays. I wouldn't feel like taking that flight. And it just became a drag. So that's where the shift happened, because I stopped feeling connected, because I started questioning and saying, hey, what am I doing? How is it affecting society? What is the bigger purpose.
How were your Sunday scaries during that time? Like, were you dreading Mondays? Like when I worked my corporate job, how I looked at life, this was my moment. If I'm working 5 days a week and every one of those mornings I'm waking up going, I've got to go to work.
Yeah.
I am thinking I can't wait till it's Friday.
Yeah.
It's Friday, I sleep, it's Saturday, I don't want to do anything. So I stay in my pajamas, watch movies all day. Sunday I get up, I'm already dreading Monday. So really one day of the year is what I look forward to. So that's 52 Saturdays a year. That means all the other 310 days of that year, I am not living in the moment. That's quite scary.
That is
right?
very, very, very scary. Yeah, exactly. I feel similarly. In fact, when I was in consulting, how it worked is that Sunday evenings, as an engagement manager, you had to sort of like have the plan for the week organized before like everyone else logs in. You needed to have logged in and planned everything.
Right.
That's a habit that I carry across now.
Yeah.
I am tuned to like 6 p.m. on Sunday, I feel like I need to have a plan for the rest of the week.
Yeah.
But now it's just, it doesn't feel like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I don't dread it. It's just like natural. It's something I'm excited about. I actually look forward to all of the exciting things I'm going to be doing next week.
It's a different shift. And clearly that energy that you bring, it makes you more productive of that way as well.
100%. It makes me more productive. And I feel a big driver of why we've been able to achieve what we've been able to achieve. You know, you mentioned earlier about the pressure of like being a South Asian woman and or like running a business, and the pressure is real. There is pressure to it. I'm not going to deny that, but it is about reframing how you think about it. That makes a big difference.
Because in some situations, there's that quote, pressure is a privilege, which can apply as well. Because if you feel that level of pressure, there is a level of that you're operating on that is a privilege.
And also there's a lot of other things you can do, right? This is not to say that there are people who cannot manage the pressure, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. You learn how to like cope up with it over time. You can't just throw somebody into it on day one. You like learn how to build it. You learn how to work with it, but you also build like rituals and support systems around you that allow you to relieve that pressure and balance that pressure, almost manage it. Yeah.
Let's talk about the wellness industry for a moment. It's worth $5.6 trillion, which is insane. And yet most of us feel like we're holding it together with green juice and a prayer. Yeah. So what was that moment, excuse a pun, that made you think, okay, this particular drink could be the antidote to modern chaos?
So as much as I would like to, there wasn't a single moment. There was a lot of different moments that came together and created this almost larger than life push for me to do it. A few that I can recollect are, one is I was at my consulting job, I was working a late night and I had a lot of caffeine that day and probably like chugged a few energy drinks as well because like, what do you do?
That's a lot of, because energy drinks are right, what?
Like 200 milligrams of caffeine each energy drink. And then when you're going out and having a coffee, like a latte or something, like between 100 to 125 milligrams.
So how are you not raving? Like dancing?
That's the thing. I was like on like 1,000 or maybe 1,200 milligrams of caffeine and my body could not handle it. And, you know, some people can handle it and I get it. But I think the challenge is that there were no other options, right? You're like feeling stressed. You're feeling burnt out. You just need to get through the evening. You need to get the work done and you just like need a system to like do it. And the only things that would be available is this.
Coffee or alcohol.
Coffee, alcohol, and or sugary sodas, right? And so that's what we were dealing with. And I remember that one night I was sitting at the McKinsey office feeling terrible. Like my heart was like racing so hard. And I think it was because of like too much caffeine and like stress and all of that like piling up. And it was a calling. It was like, hey, what am I doing? Why am I doing this to myself? And so that's where I started actively making changes to my life. That was one moment that I can recall. I started building a lot of different support systems. I started moving to healthier habits, eating food, meditating, how I think about like exercise. Like I basically started moving my life around. As a part of that, I started having a lot of adaptogens, superfoods, a lot of minerals, just taking care, just being more thoughtful and intentional with what I was consuming. When I was a consultant, I became like that engagement manager that was always giving their team like these little pouches of like powders that they can like mix in their drinks to feel good. Like, I earned like a little bit of reputation over there, but that really started my journey. I started going deeper into also like the science behind it, and it was funny because it was me going back to a lot of my roots. As you know, like South Asians, there's a lot of focus on like mind-body health and thinking about your health from like an early stage. You focus a lot on like prevention, even at a young stage. And some of the things that actually go into Moment were just like a part and parcel of the culture. I just like never actively thought about it.
Yeah.
So it was ironic that I went back to like a lot of things, and now I was like digging into it. And my mom is like, yeah, you could have just asked me. I've been telling you this for all your life. So it was funny and ironic, but it was a great, it was like a real like come around of, hey, this is who I am and this is what I want to do. Then COVID hit. My dad passed away.
I'm sorry.
And it was hard. But what was really amazing is that, he had a small business. He had lived a very intentional life, and he had died in a very happy state. I would say he was very content. Like literally, he was smiling as that happened. And the people that came to convey their condolences, they all had such positive, amazing things to say about him. And it just made me realize the impact that he had, even though he had a very small business. But I just decided that was the time when I was going to do my own thing, and this was it.
Well, I'm sorry that you lost your dad. That's painful. I lost my mum shortly after COVID as well. Losing your parents hard, whichever way you look at it, regardless of your relationship. I'm wondering if you feel this too. One, I guess, sorrow that I experienced by having my mum, every good thing that goes through my life. She wasn't there when I got married. She wasn't there when my business relaunched. Do you miss your dad in those moments? Do you wish he could see the next level of your successes?
Oh, he would have been so proud. And I feel you. He's not here, but I feel he's very much like here. And, my dad had this thing. He would write me these long letters and then like long emails. And I still have those, and I still like look at them. And I feel he's very much here with me, and he would have been very proud.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. You've clearly poured a lot of your culture into Moment as well. You mentioned adaptogens as well, also mindfulness. I'm curious, Aisha, because you have brought this intentionality to what you do and this drink too, could you give us like a short ritual? It could be one of your own, or you can maybe make up something anyone listening or watching can do to hit reset without needing like a tropical retreat.
Yeah, 100%. And that's one of the big things that we've tried to do, which is make like self-care more accessible. It doesn't always have to be, hey, to your point, a tropical like vacation, retreat. What we've tried to do is like put some of the adaptogens and botanicals in a can. But some of the other things that I do and you can do is literally meditate, go for a walk, build like a ritual of some form of movement of your body, exercising your mind some way, and different people do it like different ways. Literally in the moment, what I do is I just take 3 deep breaths and be conscious of that as you're doing it. I do that before important meetings, and it is really incredible what a change in your nervous system it can actually rebalance your cortisol levels and give you a little bit more focus. So it actually elevates you in that moment. Literally, those 2 minutes of intentional breathing will change how you feel it.
It's going to sound weird when I'm about to say this. Sometimes we forget to breathe. Like it's true. Like what you just said sounds very simple. 2 minutes of deep breathing. I'm like, I can do that. But I forget to breathe sometimes.
When was the last time you did that?
Yesterday morning when I did the calm meditation.
Great.
But like, that's the only time I do it, if I'm being very honest.
Yeah.
Like the calm says, take 3 centering breaths. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. Then I'll forget to do it for the rest of the day. It's such a simple thing.
But that's such a simple way to hit reset.
Yeah. Okay. You've also explored, going back to your South Asian roots, turmeric ingredients like turmeric, tulsi for years. What's another underrated ingredient we should all know about, and what's one overhyped one that we should be cautious about?
I would say that every ingredient has its own purpose and intention. What you should be conscious about is what are your needs and how it affects you. The reason we have chosen these ingredients is because we feel that they help everyone and overall support your nervous system, your stress levels, your ability to focus better over time. But your needs might be specifically different. So this is not to say, and both like some of the functionals that we use, like ashwagandha, L-theanine, have had a lot of Western science behind it. The reality is that there's a lot of ingredients out there that are really incredible, but they haven't been clinically proven. So I would say that I'm going to be diplomatic. I don't want to do any takes on any ingredients being overhyped or underhyped. They all have the good things. I very, very strongly believe in L-theanine, ashwagandha, magnesium. Those are the 3 ingredients that are definitely a part of my functional stack. One of the other ingredients that I have in the morning in some form or the other is lion's mane and chaga. Lion's mane, definitely. They have been somewhat overhyped, but there is value to all of them.
Okay, so what did you call it before? Your vitamin stack? Your
functional, your mineral stack.
I love that. That sounds a very adult way of saying I'm looking at of self-care. So your functional stack, let's talk about that. Tell me about your morning rituals. You said that you have a lot of rituals during the day. Yeah. Deep breaths is one of them. Your morning rituals, how do you set yourself up for the day?
I try not to have caffeine in the beginning of the day. I actually start off my day I actually mix my own powders.
Being the apothecary mom that you are, it's like you powders, right?
I mix my own powders. I'll have a warm drink in the morning. Of course, I'll start the morning with like water, but then I'll have like a warm drink and I'll mix lion's mane, chaga, sometimes like cordyceps. Then during the day, I'll make sure I get like enough magnesium. I'll generally have like 2 or 3 moments in a day. I'm tracking my macros basically every meal or anything that I consume. So I'm very big on like how much like protein, fiber, sugar, functionals I'm taking. I have a running thread of like every day what I'm taking. I'm maybe like too obsessed with it. So I don't know if I'm a good example, but I try to hit 100 grams of protein and 25 grams of fiber. Try to hit my ashwagandha, L-theanine, magnesium, lion's mane, chaga every day. Yeah.
You mentioned lion's mane, chaga, and quadriceps. Yeah. Right. They're 3. I've heard of lion's mane. Could you kind of elaborate on the function and the benefits of those 3 ingredients?
Yeah. So these are all mushrooms, and it's actually amazing. Mushrooms have been around for so long. They predate humans, and they're just there in nature. So it's incredible that now we're coming around and starting to like see some of the benefits. The other mushroom that we didn't talk about as much is reishi. That is also actually very powerful, but they all have like slightly different purposes and benefits, from supporting your cognitive thinking to helping support your nervous system, making you feel calmer. So depending on, what you're feeling, you want to take that. I love lion's mane specifically because it does give me like a little, like you start having it daily, and after you have it like 2-3 times, you'll feel like the sort of the clarity in your thinking that you will get from that. And if you combine that with like L-theanine, it will just be amazing.
Thank you so much for breaking that down. I didn't know so much about mushrooms before till now. I want to kind of zoom into a space. So being a South Asian entrepreneur is kind of a niche in itself, but being a South Asian entrepreneur in the beverage space, that's an even smaller niche. What's been the most emotionally challenging part of breaking through the barriers that you've had to?
There's definitely a lot of stereotypes. It's been funny because I've been running Moment for almost 5 years now, which is really exciting. When I'd hired an operations associate to work with me, and I remember us visiting a production plant together where I was like brushed to the side, and people just did not expect me to be the one who was the subject matter expert, to me to be the one who's running the show. And it was just assumed that I was sort of like supporting him or the assistant, and he was the main person. And there's been a lot of occasions like that where I'm an afterthought because of what I look like. And honestly, I've learned how to, it doesn't upset me. I've learned how to change the narrative in the circles that know me, but also there's a lot of other people like me and like you're doing this, right? So there's a lot of people in these niches that are changing the narrative of what South Asian women are capable of doing, how amazing they are. Like we just talked about the fact that they can hustle and work like nobody else.
And have babies and run households and cook amazing meals,
they
right?
It all.
Yeah.
They can do it all.
Yeah.
So let's like reframe how people think about us. It will take time. And I think the society is still getting used to women and South Asian women, and so it will take time. But I feel we're starting to change the narrative, and it is incredible because the number of times where I go in and people underestimate me, and then it actually works to my advantage at times because they underestimate me and they come in completely unprepared because they're like, oh, they don't expect anything, and then they get hit in the sense. There's so many like meetings where they'll be like, oh, who's this South Asian woman coming to visit our production plant? I'll go there and I'll ask questions. They'll be like, oh, why is she? Like, wow, these are, good questions, or these make sense, but they're unable to answer, or they caught off guard. And I think people are starting to this is starting to happen often enough that society is changing its views on South Asian women and also other minorities. Yeah.
It's interesting that you said that about changing perception or that sort of stuff. Because to your point, not to get upset is probably a good attitude to have, because that's not going to change anything. Yeah. Now, not only are you that random South Asian woman asking questions, you're that random South Asian woman who's mad asking questions and telling people off, which is not going to help.
I'm like, I don't care what you think. I'm going to get my questions answered.
It's I need my questions answered. No, I totally hear you.
It's funny because you remind me of this time, but I remember when I used to live in South Africa back in the days, and this thing has been, this aspect of being a South Asian woman is carried through in a lot of different places where people underestimate you. I remember me being known as the nerdy brown girl because I was always sitting in front and asking questions.
Right.
But you know what? I aced a lot of exams and I always came first, and
that
paved the way. That paved the way for a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I'm that's fine. You can call me the nerdy brown girl, but I'm going to continue going.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's amazing. And props to you for doing that as well. I'm wondering too, was there a time where maybe pitching to a room full of men, did you feel underestimated, or how would you handle something like that? How would you advise someone to handle something like that?
Yeah, I would say that don't let that, it's easy to say, of course. It's easy to say. There are times when that upsets you, when there's these biases, but I try not to let them affect me. And I think in the long term, you will win and you'll come out successful. And I feel that the narrative of the society is changing. And if you're in the room and able to show your value to them, and they still don't see it, then that's probably not the right
room for you to be,
or room to be in. Exactly. And there have been times where I feel that I've been in rooms where I've been able to convince people and they have been oh, wow, this is amazing. Like I was saying, I've been in production plants where they're oh, whoa, we weren't prepared for your questions. But then they're these are really good questions. And they've actually helped us grow. It's funny because our co-packer the other day, that's name for production plant, they go to me, you're our best customer, because they're we work with businesses that are 2, 3, 4 times your size, but nobody is as organized, as thoughtful, as planned as you guys are, even though despite your size. And I'm thank you. But, so that has changed their narrative of this is in deep Wisconsin where you never see a brown person. And so that has changed the narrative of what a brown woman is able to do. And I feel if you're doing those things and people are still unable to see your value, then I have also stepped away from conversations. There's investors where I'm no, I don't think this is a fit. Luckily, I'm in the position of privilege right now where I can decide, hey, who is going to be a part of this growth journey? And sometimes you're not. And then at those points, you just have to try to show them your value. But I feel in the long term, the society is changing enough that you can do that.
Absolutely. And that's how you change the narrative. Like you said, you just show up with your value, and that's what tips the scales. You've lived everywhere. You've touched on this: Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, South Africa, Denmark, now New York City. What's one place you've traveled to that has changed how you think about balance and living well?
I would say the answer would be New York, because New York is the place where there is the most intensity and hustle. And that's where you have to almost stop and slow down and build your own rituals and your systems to survive and make it happen.
100%. I feel the same way.
Yeah. So I've lived in a lot of places, and I love all those places like Cape Town. And I spent a lot of time in like very remote parts of Africa where it was really peaceful and really like quiet and incredible. But I feel that New York, because it's like so intense, it almost forces you. And so that's I would pick New York. I love the city.
I think this city has really helped. I don't know if you feel the same, but when I moved here from Australia, I was 32. Yeah. And it kind of forces you to be who you are, or the version of yourself that you want to be. Because otherwise you will get eaten up in this city.
That's right. And I feel there's also this beauty of being a South Asian woman. I have grown up with a lot of like societal pressures and, you having to confine to certain ways and things. I feel the city has allowed me to explore and truly be who I want to be. And you can express yourself in so many different ways, and people will accept you. And it's actually pretty incredible.
It's incredible how this city, and I think this is the magic of New York, when people come here and they talk about the energy and the vibe and the art, it's really a city in its totality that embraces individuality. Yeah. And that's a special thing to do, given that there's so much division, division in certain countries. But the fact that you can come here and I can be me. There is a man outside with a cat on his head. Yeah. Nobody says anything. Nobody. It's like, okay, there's a man outside with a cat on his head.
That's totally okay.
He's just being him.
No, that is the beauty of New York. I feel the city has also really shaped me in a lot of different ways, and it has allowed me to be so expressive of who I am and discover parts of me that I wouldn't have, especially being a South Asian woman. So I love it.
Well, you've built something pretty incredible here, Aisha. It celebrates being instead of doing. And what do you think the girl growing up in Pakistan would be feeling if she was sitting here right now, seeing what you've created, living in this big city?
Yeah.
How do you think she would be feeling right now?
Oh my gosh, this was not even a dream. This was not even in the realm of possibility. So I feel so grateful every single day for having this life and for being able to do all of this, for even being able to hustle, and for even sitting here and having this conversation where we're talking about pressure. To your point, it is a privilege to be in a position where you can have so much responsibility that you feel the pressure. So it's been like really, really incredible. And, of course, there is a whole like village that supports you and gets you here. And it wouldn't be possible without all the incredible family, friends, and people who have been a part of my life to make this happen. But yeah, that little girl, this is beyond her realm of possibility.
Were you as a kid the smart kid in the class? You said you were sitting up at the front asking all the questions. Was that you as a little girl too? Right.
That was, okay. I was a nerdy kid. But it wasn't, and the one thing is, I know like South Asian, there is a lot of like conception around like, oh, you're forced to study. I actually did enjoy it.
So you were a true nerd.
I loved going back home and doing all the math problems. That was I loved it.
You were that brown nerd. Okay.
Yeah.
See, for me, I found that I was expected to be a nerd because of how I look. I did okay at school. Like I didn't do too badly, but I wasn't the kid. I wouldn't go over my notes. Yeah. I would be having too much fun. And we weren't doing stupid. And I look back at my life like, Ginni, you could have achieved so much more if you didn't do stupid things. Like me and my best friend would just stay at this fountain looking at this statue like, why is this statue cut? It was just stupid things we would do. And I'm like, Okay, you clearly made better decisions for your life.
Well, it was just I'm still trying to unpack it as to why I loved reading, but why I love literature and math so much when I was growing up that I felt like the need to go home and like actually, without anyone asking me to, I would want to like spend time like doing my homework.
That is a dream.
Yeah. So
your parents must have been so happy. It's like, we don't have to tell this child to study. Whereas mine, like, I will bribe you with food. Can you please sit down and do your homework? What's coming up next for Moment, Aisha? Because I noticed you've got a hydration beverage now with magnesium. Tell me what's coming up for Moment.
Yeah, so we've got a few different fun flavors that we launched recently that we're very excited about. We do it as a way to just test things, but also because I love formulating. That's my favorite part of the job. My team hates it, but I'm like, yeah, new flavor. So there's always that happening. We are starting to expand into sort of retail. We're in a lot of natural chains now, like Sprouts and Earth Fare and Fresh Time, and across the country, which has been really exciting. We launched in some of the hospitality sector because that's where people need us the most. People are looking, holidays and vacations can sometimes be stressful, and the current options are, like I said, all very high energy or very sugary. And so if you just want to have like something to drink, which is delicious, but not so much sugar, and you don't want caffeine. So we're actually launched in the airports in New York, like a bunch of cruise ships like Disney and Virgin Voyages, which has been like really exciting. So we're going to continue the growth. I think a big part for us is just continuing to understand our consumers better, what they want, continue building the business. And then we have some fun collabs in the wrap. So stay tuned. I will be announcing that in the next month or two. That will, yeah.
You mentioned family, like holidays, especially the holidays at the end of the year can be super stressful.
Yeah.
And people tend to turn to routes of escapism like alcohol. I told you this off camera. I'm not a big alcohol drinker, never have been. And when I tell people that I'm not a big drinker, the assumption is it's for religious reasons or I'm a recovering alcoholic. I'm like, no, I just don't like how I feel when I wake up the next day. And I'm also naturally chatty. I don't need the social lubricant, right? You give me like a bubbly soda.
You're definitely chatty. Yeah, you're very good at it.
Thank you. But like, what would be your tip for people to kind of navigate that? Because again, you mentioned before in this conversation, it's about change. Narratives are changing. And this is one way to change the narrative of, hey, this is an option, but this is also another option where you don't have to feel these side effects.
Yeah, 100%. I feel that I also had to go through this tough journey especially when I was doing my MBA. And at that point, you had to drinking was the only option. If you were not drinking, you were only having a Diet Coke or sparkling water. That was it. Those are all the options. So it's great that the narrative is changing and you couldn't have a conversation around, oh, you don't drink without it being like, but then why are you even at the party if you're not drinking?
Exactly. It's like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay.
I'm just here to chat. That sounds very sad, but I'm glad that the narratives are changing. I feel that there's also more confidence in this narrative now. Today, if I go and tell people, hey, I'm not drinking, it's totally okay. It's like people understand that it's an intentional choice and they don't question it and they don't consider me boring. But I feel that there is now a lot of options. So I always carry Moment everywhere I go. So then it actually becomes a point of conversation, even if I'm in a slightly older school setting where it's everyone else is drinking, then I'll take it out and we'll actually have a conversation around. People will be jealous of, people would want to actually take my drink because they'll be like, oh, this is so much fun and tasty. And I'm like, yeah, exactly.
Have you had that before where someone's like, hey, I'll just take your drink?
Yeah, I've actually, the good thing is that this is, I have the luxury of taking as many drinks as I want.
Yeah.
And anytime I go to a party or a social event, I take a bunch of Moments. And then people will sometimes give up what they're drinking to have one because they're like, oh, actually, I don't need to be having alcohol. And they'll be like, I don't need to have alcohol. And they'll themselves realize it's so funny because they'll be like, oh, actually, if I don't have a second glass, I can have a Moment And then I will like probably feel like so much better the next day. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, you will. But they didn't have an option before. And so they were drinking. So it's funny because you almost are like, there's people who are waiting to be like pulled or like given an option, and they just like need a like nudge. So we're almost like converting people over.
So you're changing the narrative and the conversation, I guess the perception around,
Yeah.
I don't need this to have fun. There are other options.
Exactly.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, Aisha, I could talk to you for hours. This has
feel
been
that.
so much fun. Thank you so much for joining me on the Ginni Show.
It has been amazing. Like I said, love your positivity, love your energy. This has been awesome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Aisha.